The external environment for travel and tourism organizations. The micro context. Learning Module 4, Chapter 8, Lesson 1. After studying this chapter, students should be able to explain the importance of industry and market analysis, describe the construction and application of Porter's 5 Forces framework, describe how competitive analysis can be used for a nation or a region, define and distinguish between competitive and collaborative behavior in industries, describe and explain the limitations of the resource-based model of industry analysis, and define strategic groups and describe their usefulness in competitive analysis. Industry and market analyses focus on different things. Industries produce goods and services, the supply side of an economic system. Markets consume goods and services produced by industries. This is the demand side of an economic system. The industry and market analyses allow a travel and tourism organization to identify other industries where it may deploy its competences, understand the nature of its customers and their needs, identify new markets where core competencies may be utilized, identify threats from existing and potential competitors in its own and other industries, and understand markets from which it obtains its resources. A competitive analysis establishes the nature of competition and the travel and tourism organization's competitive position in relation to its product and resource markets. Porter's 5 Forces framework of competitive analysis is a well understood approach to doing an analysis of one's competitors. The 5 forces are the threat of new entrants to the industry, the threat of substitute products, the power of buyers or customers, the power of suppliers to businesses in the industry, and rivalry among businesses in the industry. The first force of Porter's framework is the threat of new entrants to the industry. This is based on barriers to entry that is experienced by a new organization. There are several factors within this force that influence the threat of new entrants. First, the capital costs of entering an industry. These have a negative relationship to the threat of new entrants to the industry. That is, the higher the capital costs of entering an industry, the less there is a threat of new entrants to that industry. Second is brand loyalty and customer switching costs. This also has a negative relationship to the threat of new entrants. Economies of scale available to competitors. This has a positive relationship to the threat of new entrants. That is, the more available economies of scale are to competitors in the industry, the greater the threat that new competitors will come into that industry. Access to input and distribution channels has a positive relationship to the threat of new entrants, and the resistance offered by existing businesses has a negative relationship to the threat of new entrants. The students should go through each of these and be sure they understand what it means to have a negative and a positive relationship to the threat of new entrants. The second force is the threat of substitute products. A substitute is something which meets the same needs as the product of that industry. 2 factors are the extent to which the price and performance of the substitute can match the industry's product. This has a positive relationship to the threat of substitute products. That is, the more alike a substitute product is in terms of price and its performance, more likelihood that customers will select that as a substitute. And the willingness of buyers to switch to the substitute, as you would expect, has a positive relationship with the threat of those substitute products. Force 3, the bargaining power of customers. This refers to the extent to which customers of a product can exert some power over the travel and tourism organization. The number of customers and the volume of their purchases. This has a positive relationship to the bargaining power of customers. Given a certain number of customers, the greater amount that they purchase in any given purchase event, the more power they have. The number of businesses supplying the product and their size. This also has a positive relationship with the bargaining power of those customers. This is related to switching costs. The greater the switching costs for a customer to go from one competitor to another, the less bargaining power customers have. That is a negative relationship. And the availability of substitutes has a positive relationship with the bargaining power of customers. Force 4, the bargaining power of suppliers. This refers to the extent to which suppliers to a travel and tourism organization can exert power over it. Factors include the uniqueness and scarcity of the resource that suppliers provide. This has a positive relationship to the bargaining power of suppliers. How many other industries have a requirement for the resource the supplier provides? This also has a positive relationship with the bargaining power suppliers have over the travel and tourism organization. Switching costs between suppliers. This has a positive relationship. That is, the more it costs your organization to switch from this supplier to another supplier, the greater power your existing suppliers have over you. And the number and size of the resource suppliers has a negative relationship. That is, the more resource suppliers there are, the more able you are as an organization to switch, given switching costs and other factors being equal. Force 5, the intensity of rivalry among businesses in the industry. This is the level of competition, price and non-price, that occurs among businesses within an industry. The relative size of competitors actually has a negative relationship on the intensity of rivalry among businesses in the industry. The larger the competitors, the less intense the rivalry is. The nature of costs in industry sectors has a positive relationship. The maturity of the market served has a positive relationship with the intensity of rivalry. The degree of brand loyalty of customers actually has a negative relationship with the intensity of rivalry because it is an inherent factor that keeps customers from switching. The degree of differentiation among products has a negative relationship with the intensity of rivalry. Government regulation also has a negative relationship with the intensity of rivalry among businesses. And finally, the height of exit barriers, or the difficulty with which it is to leave an industry, has a positive relationship with the intensity of rivalry among businesses. Students should again think about the relationship between these particular factors and the force and try to understand why that positive or negative relationship makes sense. There are several limitations to Porter's 5 forces model. First, it implies that suppliers, buyers, and competitors are in fact threats to each other. It claims to assess industry profitability, and it implies that the 5 forces apply equally to all competitors in an industry. All of these claims are doubtful. You can also look at competitive analysis not for just an organization, but for entire nations or regions. This is done by Porter's diamond analysis. This analysis looks at the relative strengths and weaknesses of several factors in a region which influence the competitive advantage of that region. These factors include factor conditions such as resources, physical, human, capital, infrastructure, and knowledge. Market structures, organizations, and strategies. Demand conditions, related and supporting industries, and also government and other chance events such as terrorism, weather. These are all factors that should be examined for an entire nation or for an entire region to determine its competitive advantage over other nations or regions. Another approach to microcontext analysis is a resource-based approach. This emphasizes the importance of core competences, and there are 5 areas of analysis for this approach. The organization, examining the configuration of the internal value chain for that organization, its competences, its resources, and its core competences. The organization's industry. This examines characteristics of the industry as a whole, the organization and its competitors. Product markets, where the travel and tourism organization deploy their competencies and sell their products and services. And resource markets, markets where travel and tourism organization obtains financial resources, human resources, materials, equipment, and services. Finally, is strategic group analysis. The closest competitors to the travel and tourism organization are called strategic groups. They have similar competences, market segments, and product or service quality. This allows an organization to compare its performance in terms of profitability, market share, products, brands, customer loyalty, and prices. That is, benchmarking. There are 3 steps to strategic group analysis. First, identify the important competitive dimensions in an industry. Construct 2-dimensional plots of competitive dimensions and analyze travel and tourism organizations' position relative to competitors. A position analysis such as this was discussed in Chapter 6, the previous learning module.